share my screen again, 1 second. Welcome everybody. Thank you very much for coming along this morning. I'm going to do a quick introduction and then we'll pass over to our speakers. So a quick overview of the agenda today. So at 9:45, we're going to welcome David Trainor. David is the founder and CTO of Immersonal. That's a platform which allows subject matter experts to create virtual and augmented reality training experiences just as easily as creating a PowerPoint presentation. He's also founder and director of Sentireal, a software and media production company that creates sophisticated, bespoke virtual and augmented reality training experiences for medical, construction, manufacturing, agriculture, safety and security industries. At 10:15, we're going to welcome David McCullough from VRPARK. David is an experienced business owner with an outstanding track record of sales success and sales management. Earlier this year, in March 21, David co-founded VRPARK. VRPARK builds immersive 3D worlds for work, learning and virtual events, enabling workforces to truly solve the challenges of remote collaboration through an immersive virtual reality from virtually anywhere. And I think we all know the importance of that after the last few years. We'll have a break after we've heard from David, and then we're going to welcome along Dr. Darragh Lydon, who is a lecturer at Queen's University Belfast's MediaLab, which is part of the Faculty of Arts, Humanities and Social Sciences. Dr. Lydon's primary degree was in computer games development, and then he worked for 5 years in professional gaming development across a lot of titles, some original IP and some client projects. He returned to academia and undertook PhD studies investigating the structural health of civil engineering structures using applied computer vision and deep learning techniques. His postgraduate research focus has been on the application of proactive maintenance of infrastructure based on information gathered from advanced monitoring methods paired with synthetic data generation and visualization. So Darragh is going to be talking about how games technologies can be applied to a diverse range of areas, including medical, architecture and advanced manufacturing. And last but not least, I'm delighted to welcome along Michael McCullough from Yellow Design. He's the creative director of Belfast-based Yellow Design, and he'll be speaking, amongst other things, on some of the recent AR app developments for tourism and civic use. And if you're from Northern Ireland or have visited Northern Ireland, you may be familiar with some of the projects Michael and his team have worked on, including the tourism app featured at the Titanic Quarter, the Titanic back in Belfast, and also an AR walking tour of the Peace Wall. And just to bring to your attention as well, the Belfast XR Festival is happening today. I think I might have a... Oh, I might have to stop sharing. I'll put it in the link, but 1 second. There we go. So that's happening today, and there is a great program of oh, sorry, I'm not sharing. All right. Here we go. So it's the Belfast XR Festival, and there are lots of different events going on, and that's run by the it's in association with the Belfast Film Festival, and I think an ice screener involved as well. Okay, and back to here. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to give a quick overview of the Digital Surge programme. This session today is part of the Digital Surge programme. These sessions that we run on innovation and on advanced technologies, anyone is welcome to attend these. And I know we have some people from across the globe joining us this morning, and you're very, very welcome. The Digital Surge programme is funded by Invest Northern Ireland and also all the local councils and also the European Regional Development Fund. And you'll see the logos and that little quote at the bottom of all the slides. So yes, the workshops and masterclasses are anyone is welcome to attend those. But if you're a company with under 50 employees and registered in Northern Ireland, you can also apply for 6 days of fully funded mentoring support, and the areas are listed there: blockchain, big data, AI and machine learning, the Internet of Things, cobotics and robotics, and immersive technologies, as we're discussing today. If you apply for the programme and are accepted onto it, the first stage is an innovation diagnostic with Charlie Topsworth, who is an innovation consultant and expert and practitioner. After that, you get 6 days of mentoring support in the area that you want to use to help address whatever business challenge or goals that you have. And at the end of that, you get a digital acceleration plan, which is a properly thought out strategic plan that your mentor will work on with the lead mentor and also with your input of how do you actually go about, if this technology is right for your business, how do you go about implementing it, and who are the people you need to speak to, what skills do you need, what further funding is there, what further support, and we'll help make those introductions to those other bodies. So if you're interested in applying for that, there are some spaces left. They are filling up very quickly, and I think maybe some council areas are full or approaching it. So please do, if you haven't already applied, please do if you're interested, and if you know of anyone who wants to apply, do urge them to do so quickly. So I will share a link in chat later, but there, and I will email you afterwards as well. But there's a QR code. I hope it works. So today's session is on immersive technologies, augmented and virtual reality. Next week, we have a session on blockchain. We are welcoming along Shane from the world. Shane was part of the team that created the world's first blockchain beer. And you're going to have to excuse me again while I stop sharing so I can go on to another page and quickly show you that. So Downstream Beer is the world's first blockchain beer, and they have created that. It's locally brewed, and if you scan on the QR code, it'll give you a background to where the water was from and the hops, or what hops is the right thing that goes into beer, but who brewed it, who packaged it, all the every stage of the beer's journey, and it's stocked globally, I think even in Marks and Spencer. So that is one of our speakers. We'll also be welcoming along Saoirse Mulligan from Blockchain Ireland. She's part of this cluster and also works up in blockchain as well. So that's next week. You're welcome to register for that. On the 23rd of November, we have the Internet of Things. I am delighted and to welcome along to that. Cambridge University has this initiative called Digital Manufacturing on a Shoestring, and they have done some fantastic work around IoT and also how using IoT devices really, really easily, accessibly, and cost effectively in small factories to start to collect data and make improvements on productivity and efficiency. So I really recommend you dial into that one. Really, really pleased to welcome them along. They've done some really great projects. And also Conal Laverty, who is the founder of Waya. One of the things, it is an IoT platform, but one of the things that they've produced is a energy efficiency IoT platform. Oh, there it says it at the top. It helps businesses monitor electricity and become more sustainable enterprises. Those two will be speakers on the 23rd. Okay, oh. So I'll share the link to register in the chat, and I'll email it out afterwards. And there's a QR code. So, not coffee yet. I'm too excited. So, I'm going to stop sharing again, please. Sorry, 1 second. Seamless, everybody. Okay, David, I see your little face there. I'm going to make you host.
No problem, Gillian. Thank you.
There you go. So, really thank you very much for coming along, David. I'm really excited to hear your presentation. And also, I know you know Michael McLeod, and we were kind of talking.
Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering. I said to Michael, did David decide on his area of what he was going to look into, really, in augmented reality because of your surname, or did you change your surname?
No, it is the ultimate irony that I'm kind of involved in education and training technologies, given the surname, but no, it's a pure coincidence.
Okay, I believe you. I'm going to go on mute.
No, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Very nice to be here, and thanks to Digital Surge for the invitation. With the benefit of being first up, this presentation is going to be something of a scene setter in terms of just getting us familiar with perhaps with some of the terminology and buzzwords around immersive tech, and I want to focus then on a few kind of use cases or case studies that I personally have been involved in. Then give me a very nice introduction earlier on, so I'll not labor too much on this slide, but I've been working in immersive technology for coming up on 9 years now. I co-founded Sentireal way back in the day, late 2013. Immersive tech was quite a different beast back then, but really focused on using both virtual and augmented reality technologies to create, we say education and training experiences. It also touches on things like productivity improvements. So creating experiences for the enterprise and the workplace that either help people learn new skills or become more productive or learn processes better. So on Sentireal, we've actually quite a diverse sort of set of industry verticals that we work across. A lot of it would tend to be either scientific or safety critical industries. So we do a lot of work in medical, construction, manufacturing, health and safety. We have done some other work in heritage and tourism, and more on social and educational aspects, but certainly the lion's share of our work is more kind of around scientific simulation or safety critical experiences. As well as immersive, we do also do some regular mobile and web app development. Very often they are kind of companion apps to the immersive experiences that we create. So just over a year ago, because of the work we carried out in Sentireal, we came up with this concept of what has now been spun out as a separate company in Immersonal. This is really us developing what we're calling kind of the PowerPoint or the Wix website builder of immersive learning. Very often you have a situation where someone is a subject matter expert in a particular area, but maybe lacks some technical expertise or doesn't want to invest many years of effort in learning games development or game engines or AI or any of the other tools that we traditionally need to make virtual and augmented reality. So we've created a PowerPoint-like platform to let non-technical subject matter experts self-author their own immersive training more easily. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So just as a quick agenda, some acronym busting to start off with, make sure that we're kind of all on the same page about what we're talking about. I'll touch on the metaverse because that's very current. Case studies, just to show some of the benefits of immersive technology, at least in our world as it pertains to learning and development, and a little bit about some innovations that are on the horizon. So like most of technology areas or industries, we're plagued with acronyms in this particular industry, mostly ending in reality. So we've obviously virtual, augmented, mixed, extended reality, and so on. So just to make sure that we're kind of all clear about what we're talking about. Virtual reality, there's variations in these definitions, but these are the ones I tend to use. So a computer-generated 3D environment that you can interact with. So I often use the example of, if you imagine a PC or a PlayStation game, it's like being inside that game and interacting with that computer-generated world. Users move and interact in this world using particular devices. So most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the head-mounted display or the VR headset, the example of a Meta Quest here. Very often these come with kind of handheld PlayStation-style controllers as well. And to give you an idea of kind of what that sort of experience might look like, this is some video we shot from inside a headset. This is a construction-related application that we built. This is around health and safety on construction sites. This particular module is the working at heights module. So, you know, we're dealing with things like climbing ladders and scaffolding and spotting hazards and so on. But you can see very much it's a completely 3D computer-generated world that you navigate around inside, either by teleporting around or actually physically walking around a physical room if you've got sufficient space. So that might be something that we would create in the construction sector in this particular case. Augmented reality here, rather than having a device that shuts you off from the real world and puts you in a computer world, this is where you actually place digital information or digital objects in your view of the real world. So in a way that it looks realistic, so a way that it looks like those digital objects belong alongside the real world environment. And again, some sort of wearable or mobile device is used to see this blend of the real and the virtual. That can be anything from holding up a smartphone or tablet, switching on the camera view and seeing these digital objects placed in the real world, or some of these sophisticated glasses or visor style devices, just the HoloLens or Magic Leap. You may be familiar with some of these. In our world, again, of the kind of learning and development, this might be the sort of experience we would create here. We're looking at sort of a mechanic or car maintenance type of training, where someone with a pair of AR glasses can get digital overlays, in this case of aspects of a car engine. As another example, this is a smartphone-based augmented reality application we built a while back with a local glass manufacturer, and this lets them and their customers co-design different types of bottle in augmented reality, so that they can decide on the materials and the dimensions of the bottle, the labeling and so on, all in the digital world before giving that data to their manufacturing facility to make the actual physical bottles. So here they're experimenting with different dimensions of the bottle. So you can different materials, different heights and widths and so on of the bottle itself. So just to be clear, that's a digital bottle sitting on a physical desktop in an office. So you can see that's where that blend of the real and the virtual comes from. So here it's adjusting the width, and then I think finally you can tap the bottle to place various branding and labeling on it. So it gives a way of experimenting with what products might look like in a purely digital form before committing to manufacture. So we then have mixed reality. For the purposes of this conversation, it's similar to augmented reality, but it has a more sophisticated set of interactions between virtual objects and the real objects. So the example I always give is if you had a digital ball that you could bounce off a physical floor or wall, that's a mixed reality experience. So it's a way of actually making the digital objects respect the physics of the real world that it's in. And then finally, extended reality, which is often abbreviated to XR. That's just an umbrella term for everything that I talked about up to now. So there's so many acronyms, they kind of invented another one as a catch-all for all the previous ones. Okay. Again, just in terms of definitions, kind of leads us on to the metaverse, which is kind of I suppose, the current hot topic. Again, you'll see a few different definitions for this. This is the one I commonly use. So it's a combination of multiple technology elements, including VR, AR, and video. But again, it's this concept of allowing groups of dispersed users to, I'm going to air quote, live within a shared digital universe. I'm sure David's going to talk more about this in his talk, so I won't labor the point too much. But very much this is seen as what things like the internet and the World Wide Web might evolve into in the upcoming years, combining kind of more realistic interactions and visuals that immersive technology can provide. It's hard to mention the metaverse without mentioning Meta, the former Facebook it was. Clearly, you know, of all organizations, they're probably ones that are pouring the most research dollars and so on into this area. They've obviously bet on it very heavily. As a result, it's kind of created an interesting marketing trend around the metaverse, and it tends to be something that, from a marketing or hype perspective, is viewed in kind of polar opposites. You know, either very pro or very anti. And I came across this article on LinkedIn recently, which I thought was quite nice, or this list on LinkedIn, to kind of, I suppose, maybe try and put a bit of perspective on this. So a guy called Alvin Graylin produced this, but it was his top 10 metaverse myths. So I thought it might be kind of interesting to show this. So the first myth was that the metaverse is just VR and AR by a different name. So obviously this concept of the metaverse is, you know, it's much larger. It's the next computing paradigm. It's the next sort of form of I guess social interaction, collaboration, and so on. Having said that, the metaverse is not just about gaming or social experiences. You know, we're already using the metaverse in terms of collaborative experiences for learning and development. In the metaverse, it's not just a digital twin. It's not just recreating the physical world, a digital copy of the physical world, although that can be very useful for other aspects. With these two together, like most kind of new technology paradigms, it's probably not going to create a utopia, neither is it going to destroy society as we know it. It's much more likely to become something, it'll be a tool in a toolbox, most likely, where in the same way that other media like you know, print and film and video are used for certain tasks that they perform well in, the metaverse is likely to go a similar way. So as such, it's not just a niche or a fad. It really has real world benefits in a number of areas. The truth of the matter is the metaverse is probably neither already here, neither is it pure science fiction. So the metaverse isn't exactly a new fundamental concept. You know, collaborative virtual worlds have been created before. Some of you may remember Second Life from a few years back. Having said that, it's probably not yet capable of all the kind of sophisticated interactions that we would like it to be. So, you know, it is still a work in progress. The idea that one company is making the metaverse is kind of a myth as well. Obviously, Facebook / Meta might like you to think that, and they may be the single biggest vendor in terms of investment money and so on being put into it. But, you know, in the same way that the internet or the World Wide Web is not created by a single entity, neither will the metaverse be. And finally, some of you may be aware of this concept of buying virtual land in the metaverse, or NFTs, you know, owning digital assets and so on. These are all real things, but they are not a must to take part within the metaverse. So hopefully that puts a little bit of perspective on you know, some of the marketing materials you might see about this concept. What immersive tech, or indeed the metaverse, are really good at is giving people an experience they otherwise wouldn't get, like marked experience, because one of the things we have to ask ourselves continually is, for a particular experience, is immersive tech the right tool? Does it actually add to the experience significantly? So the real strengths of immersive tech are obviously 3D visualization and high levels of interactivity. So if your application benefits from either or hopefully both of those things, then it's a good choice. If not, it might be worth thinking whether kind of immersive tech is the route to go. So in our world, essentially learning, one of the, I suppose, great benefits of immersive technology is, it supplements other forms of learning, but because it's highly visual and because it's learning by doing rather than being demoed or presented to, you get this kind of tone of learning thing where learning by doing, which includes AR and VR, and actually working with others in a virtual augmented reality experience and teaching others, tends to give much higher knowledge retention. And we're all aware of the fact that one of the problems with many training courses is the fact that the knowledge tends to be forgotten very quickly after the course is finished. So this is an effect that we would use quite significantly. Another way of looking at it is we tend to learn things so that we can apply them, particularly if it's skills-based learning. But actually, there's a couple of intermediate parts of that process where we're presented with information. We have to encode that within our brains, and then we have to have the ability to recall that information before we can actually apply and use it. And it's those two intermediate steps actually that immersive technology is really good at. So things like refresher training, things like simulating information in a very practical and visual way, so that you can then apply it in the real world afterwards. These would be areas where virtual and augmented reality can help significantly. But just to maybe give a couple of examples or case studies that I've been involved in. As I mentioned, a lot of the experiences we would have created would have been around safety critical aspects. So this is some work we did with Queen's University in their civil engineering department. These are some photographs of the real world civil engineering lab. And one of the things they get students to do is to stress test reinforced concrete beams to the point of destruction. And basically, this is kind of to teach student engineers about the effective forces on concrete beams, how much they deflect under a certain force, how they fail, at what level they fracture at, and so on. Obviously, this is key information for constructing structures out of those materials. So doing that as a physical laboratory exercises, these are some of the considerations the university had to go through. There's the cost of actually getting physical and very heavy concrete beams in and out of the lab. These days, of course, there's also a sustainability issue around that as well. And also there's students are operating heavy machinery, large hydraulic presses and so on. So there's obviously a safety aspect as well. So what I'm going to show you now is a video of effectively a virtual reality experience created around this laboratory and the physical experiments that are carried out within it. What it's going to show you is it'll show you just a quick tour of the virtual equivalent of this lab, and then it will cut to an actual a virtual concrete beam in a press. Being applied with force. You'll see it start to curve, you'll see cracks appearing, and you'll see it ultimately fracture. So I'll let that going. So again, this footage is shot from within the headset itself, so you're seeing effectively what the user sees. And again, they're teleporting around the lab. This is a experience for someone who's seated or has limited physical space. So this is the beam now being pressed. You can probably just about make out some dust appearing at the bottom of the beam. And then the student takes various recordings at various points about how much force is being applied and how much the beam is bending or deflecting. So you can just about see the dust, I think, falling down from under the beam there. You should start to see the small cracks appearing in the surface of the concrete. The crack's getting more significant now as the force increases. Oh, something started to give way there. There's a mode where the student can highlight the cracks in red to make them more easily discernible. They're recording the force readings. And there you go. So that was the point there that the actual being fractured, and you saw some debris falling off there, and the concrete, or sorry, the steel reinforcing rods gave way. So that's just a quick example then of where we're in this case using engineering or scientific applications, casting those in a way that's useful for a virtual reality based solution. And obviously this is all supportable and accessible from around the world. So people doing like apprenticeship engineering degrees who may not be physically located at a university can now partake of this type of learning without needing to be at a physical laboratory. So that's a fairly scientific example. This next one, also with Queen's University, we were working with, is looking around. I said softer skills because this is in social work training. So obviously there is still quite a lot of kind of correct practice and due process and so on going on here. But also with this particular scenario, because it's preparing trainee social workers for perhaps difficult interactions that they might face. You're perhaps going into potentially a family protection scenario. It's also bringing things like human empathy and emotional intelligence and so on. VR allows them to put their learning in practice, and it allows them to kind of to repeat experiences again without requiring either role play, which can be somewhat artificial experience, or worse, making a bad situation worse in real life. So this one's quite interesting. This is actually based on segments of 360-degree video viewed from within a headset that are pieced together to create different routes through the experience or different stories. So effectively, the trainee's decision at various points influences what happens next in the story. So it's kind of like a branched narrative type of approach.
David, there's no sound. I don't know if you need to turn it up on your end, or sometimes there's a setting.
Okay.
On now.
Is that any better?
I can't hear it.
Okay, let me try sharing this again. Sometimes when you share, it gives a different option for. Is that any better?
I can't hear it. Can anyone else hear it? No.
Okay. I'm more used to Teams, to be honest. I know some of them there is a share computer sound whenever you go to share, but I don't see it
I
actually
wonder
here in
if you
Zoom.
make me host and I make 1 second.
Maybe when you make me host, you have to actually
so
give that permission.
Yeah, if you make me host, sorry about this, everybody. This is my fault.
Sorry about that.
And then I wonder, is there something there? I'm digital surge on it. It's not my name.
Have you got host permissions now, Gillian? Yeah.
No, it's not. Hang on. I don't. No. In the meantime, somebody is asking, who's asking what software was used to render the lab, and can the user interact with the load test or just observe it? Come back to your.
Yeah. So the answer to the second part is yes. So in fact, just for it didn't show because the full video was quite long. But one of the things the student has to do is to actually place sensors along the length of the beam. So they physically grab. You might have seen a little like a little grey stick thing sticking in the top of the beam. So they actually have to place those interactively along the along the beam. So yes, typically once the actual press is, and actually they have control over the press. You might have just seen a little hand control as well appearing. So they have control over the amount of force that's being applied as well. But obviously once the press is actually going, typically it's recording the results on the monitor and observing the spread of cracks. So I'm just trying to work out here how to.
When I go down to my mute button, if I click on it, there's a menu comes up saying select a microphone, and I wonder if you hit same as system, would that work? So if you go down and hover and pull up at the mute button, the wee arrow. I don't know.
So let me see audio settings. So I don't see it here. I think I probably just have to. I'll explain what's going on here as we go, because I think that's. I'm not seeing where to do that. So essentially, what's happening here is that obviously this is outside the house that they're going to visit. They've been given some initial instructions by the more experienced social worker here. Really, what I wanted to show is the fact we can make these with a 360 video based solution, and that if I'll play this a little bit, and what you'll see is you will get like overlaid kind of digital prompts and choices that the trainee can make, which influences obviously the outcome of the story, of the experience. So here, for example, they're presented with a choice that they can pick as to whether they want to interview the parent first or the child first in this case. So one of the things this inspired was the concept of being able to, I guess, empower subject matter experts, whether that's social work experts, whether it's engineering experts, who may not have games development capability, the ability to sort of use their own digital assets, bring these together, much the same way as you might bring images and videos together into a PowerPoint presentation, for example. and create something that can be consumed in virtual or augmented reality. So that was largely why we came up with this concept, which is what my current day job is in Immersonal. So effectively, this presents like a PowerPoint style interface where an author can bring in 3D models, they can bring in clips of 360-degree video, they can bring in audio clips, they can connect them together in sequences, either simple or complicated. They can define interactive hotspots where they want trainees to interact with either objects in the video or actual 3D objects in a 3D scene, and then effectively publish that to the cloud, and then have trainees remotely consume that on pretty much any device. So it can of course be consumed in VR headsets, but also as a 3D experience on a phone or a tablet if headsets aren't available. So this kind of notion of self-empowered or of self-authored VR training, or being empowered for subject matter experts to create this kind of material for themselves, is kind of what it's what we're trying to address with Immersional. So just a couple of slides just into what is coming up in the near future. We talked about the metaverse. Obviously, that's going to be a big aspect. From a technology point of view, one of the big things is going to be, of course, the inevitable kind of weight reduction, form factor reduction, shrinking, if you like, of headsets, both VR and AR. So we're going to see things like this HoloLens style device here, which is producing kind of fairly limited experience, such as you're seeing here, where you're really looking at the digital world through something of a letterbox into something that looks more like a regular pair of glasses, I guess. So these would be some upcoming models from Vuzix, who make a lot of these glasses for enterprise and production applications. And of course, everyone's waiting for what Apple's going to do in this space, and there's lots of different theories about that, whether it would be VR or AR or both. But there seems to be some commonality around, whether it's next year or early the following year, about some kind of Apple glasses being introduced, and obviously the industry getting quite excited about that. Apple has a history of being late to the party, but bringing something interesting when they do actually arrive. And obviously, some form factor like this is going to be much more tractable than a heavier duty headset. So it's going to open up new applications and also make these things comfortable to wear for longer periods, which for us in the training world is going to be quite significant. And that's me. Thanks for attention. Sorry about the audio issue. Hopefully I explained around that okay. Got contact details here. Feel free to reach out to me on any issue around immersive tech. Always happy to talk about that. I'll paste that LinkedIn link into the chat as well, so that you just have that. So, but thanks for your attention. I don't know if we have time for questions, Gillian, but I'm happy to take any if someone wants to.
Brilliant, thank you, David, and I'll share your contact details as well, if that's okay.
Great, yes, no problem.
Super. I have a quick question. Is there any, like, some of the industries you're working in are like traditional industries?
Yes.
Construction, civil engineering, whatever.
Yeah.
But they seem to be embracing immersive technologies, or is there any sort of, are older people in the industry a bit more reticent, and maybe once they use it, they're like, oh no, this is great? Or is there any?
It's surprising. I mean, you do sometimes find that, but generally, actually, we have found, even people who've been in these industries for quite some time, actually like the experiences. They tend to be quite open to it, and it's kind of interesting. A lot of those industries, one of the effects they're seeing as well too are experienced people retiring, leaving the industry, and skills are being lost actually through that. So one of the things we've been doing is using kind of immersive experiences as a means of preserving those skills when the people themselves, leave the industry or retire or move on, so that they're not lost for the next generation of the workforce coming through. So that's kind of interesting. The other thing as well is some of those industries, although they might be viewed as quite traditional, a lot of them, and I would include medical actually in this as well, a lot of them have a history of using simulation type technologies in what they do. So for them, there isn't quite as big a leap to something like VR because they're already used to using like computer-aided design or other types of testing or simulation technology. So it's not as big a mental leap as it might be for other industries. So that's an interesting effect we've found.
Does anyone have any other questions for David? You can just unmute yourself or put it in the chat, or if you think of something later, I can certainly pass it on, or you can contact David.
I'm just conscious. One last thing. I didn't answer the first part of Jose's question. So the software used to render the civil engineering lab. So that was actually built in a game engine called Unity. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's a very commonly used computer games design package that's also used to create a lot of VR experiences. But what we actually did for that civil engineering lab is we actually went in with we actually took a 3D scan of the real world lab at Queen's. So we actually had access to a LiDAR scanner, which is things surveyors and stuff would use, but it actually creates a very accurate 3D representation of a physical room. And then we built that into a 3D model and then used Unity to create the kind of gamified elements of it.
Hi, David. Jose here. Yeah, thank you for the clarification. That's actually what I was thinking, because I work actually in that area, the structural health monitoring, some VR, AR, and instead of Unity, I'm trying to introduce the Unreal Engine, which is similar, the same, or another game engine production. And I was just wondering, because I also work with sensors, structural health monitoring, reinforced concrete as well. So how are the likes these days about using virtual reality for SHM? If it's like starting to be implemented in the companies like the civil industry, as far as I can tell, like part of what I do, it's also research and development in terms of implementing VR in the structural health monitoring. So part of the question I made was if it's possible while in the virtual world to interact with in this case to the structure or the concrete beam.
Yes, absolutely. So as I mentioned, an earlier part of the experience is actually placing sensors on the beam, and in the VR experience, the user actually physically grabs virtual sensors and places them on the beam. They can interact with the crane that brings the beam in, with the breast controls, and so on. The other thing that experience lets them do as well is, again, it wasn't shown in the video, but they can actually change the dimensions and the materials of the beam and run that experiment, using beams of different sizes and composed of different materials. Then obviously the load bearing ability and the deflections and the cracking and the fracturing would be different in each case.
All right, thank you very much. And just one more thing: is it possible to access the data, the sensors data, virtual?
Yes. So actually, what happens is the student records that sensor data. You probably saw it went to the little old-style computer screen that was rendered in VR, and they take various force readings. So actually, those readings in that particular experience, those readings are actually were actually sent to their student QUB email account, so they could actually. Yeah, they could actually create basically like a lab book type. It created like a virtual lab book for them. So the same way in the physical world, where they would, if they were physically crushing the beam, they would sort of jot down the readings in a lab book. It created a digital equivalent of that, which is obviously useful for the both the recording. To show that they took part in the experiment, but also for the assessment side of things in the university too.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay.
David, that was brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a really, really interesting overview and then the look at the different applications. Could you
problem.
click on David McCullough's little box, and I think what you do is if you see the three.
Can I? Yes, make host. Yeah, I've got. Yeah.
And then click on his three buttons, and then I think that's how you do it. Make him host.
Yes, I think that's it now.
Perfect. Yes, that's it.
Hopefully that's you now, David.
Thanks, David. Yeah, you don't have to be called David to present today, but it certainly helps. Well, thanks, Gillian, for inviting me along. Thanks, David, for setting the scene. The good news is I'm not technical. Okay, so very technical questions, please ask, and I'll bluff my way through them, of course. But I guess hopefully one of the reasons I was asked on was to give a kind of a more real world feel to the metaverse. Just a bit of a background. You know, I've been in sales and selling technology for a few years. This is a new venture for us. And the reason that we started on this journey was we had a challenge, we had a need. We had clients who wanted to think about the COVID scenario where you couldn't go to a physical event. So we had clients who were looking to do virtual events. And what we were seeing was that the technology out there was very poor. The experience was very poor. I'm not going to slag Zoom and Teams. It definitely has its place. But for larger events, very difficult to deliver the results that our clients needed. So we set about researching the best technology out there, and we found Virbela, which is the underlying technology of our business. But interesting just in terms of, you know, is it new? It's not. It's 10-year-old technology. David established his business just over 10 or just under 10 years ago. So a lot of the technology which has been kind of grouped under metaverse now has been around for a while. It's just the application of it which is probably different. And when we started the business, we didn't call ourselves a metaverse business, but Mark Zuckerberg did. And I guess it's now a sort of a name that everybody can kind of relate to. So we kind of jumped on the bandwagon because rather than try to explain a lot of VR, a lot of the acronyms, it's easy to call it metaverse. And then what we do is we talk about, you know, what can we do to add value. So we do some work with PwC. Again, PwC were probably at the forefront identifying the metaverse, which we can now call metaverse technologies, 10 years ago, and they're seen as industry leaders with that, and they would use the Virbela platform globally with their clients. But I like to make things, I guess, simple. Why would you know, David's described the metaverse very well. You know, what is it? We would get that question, what actually is it? Is it something for the future? Is it here now? And it's, as David said, it's both. It definitely is here now. We're seeing our clients and others adopting and using the technology for good. Do you always need a VR headset? The good news is no. And I have yet to wear a VR headset in terms of what we deliver. And then the final one is, well, what do you use it for? And I guess that's what I'm here to talk about, a little bit about what we would use it for. So but the two drivers for me of why you would use it would be back to the two fundamental drivers is pain and gain. Have you got a challenge in your business that you're trying to solve, or are you trying to get a competitive advantage? You're trying to get some gain. So if we look at it in that context, I'm going to share my screen now, or I'll hopefully try to share my screen. Hold on 1 second. So hopefully you can all see that. So look, mine's going to be very much a show and tell, as opposed to just talking about it. So the view you've got now is effectively me sitting in the metaverse. And where I'm actually sitting in the metaverse is an office within the Excel offices within the VRPARK. And that will become more apparent as to where that is and how that works. But that's me. If I stand up now, just bear with. So that's me standing up in my little office. So that's my own private space within the VRPARK. Okay, so you can see I've got a virtual window, but I've also got two web boards. You can also see that I'm moving about as an avatar. And on our platform is avatar based. So when you join the metaverse in our context, you join as an avatar. Okay, so that's the back of my head, and that's my view every day. So as you can see, I don't need the VR headset. I've got the 3D sense, but it's got that first person view. I just click on here, then I can view my avatar, and then you can see what I look like to others in the park. Okay, so I'm going to change that view back. And this is my view. So I'm in this space, and I'll just talk through a few features within this space. So I've selected a seating space here, which is quite informal. I'm just going to move that. So I can change my office configuration. So I can have no furniture in the office. I can have some casual seating, a little bit more formal, or I can have a group desk. So if I've got multiple people in here for a meeting, we can all join around the desk. Okay. Again, you'll see there's web boards at the side. So on that screen, I've got digital search program up on a web screen. I can interact with that. I can also unleash my pointer, and I can point. So if I was in a meeting with others, I can show some technology there. I can point out various things. I've also got the opportunity to, I'll just right click. So hopefully you'll see down at the bottom there, the opportunity, and my zooms over the top of it. But I can bookmark the site, I can upload a document, I can share my screen, or I can actually share my video. Now I can't share the video today because Zoom's using the video and the audio. So I can't share that today. But if I was in a meeting with two of us were in the room, I can set up the camera, they could set on their camera, and we could replicate a Zoom call or a Teams type call. The truth is, though, that when you're in avatar format, you less feel the need to have the video on. The avatar itself seems to do the trick. So just again, a little bit of controls. Along the left-hand side here, you've got the mic. So when I switch the mic on, that's me speaking within the space. Okay, and when you are speaking, you'll see the speech bubble appear. If I knock that off, then again, nobody will hear me in this space. I've also got the chat option here, where I can chat. I can chat or send a message to an individual. So I can send a message to Adele now, and she's just across the hall. So she would get the message, and it might be like, can you talk over a file, or can you nip over for a few seconds, or whatever it happens to be. Okay. Just before I leave, though, you'll see a little blue hue line there across the piece, and you'll see it in other spaces. And that basically indicates a private space. So if you're in this space and you're speaking or you're working with someone, nobody else outside of that space can hear. So from a privacy point of view, you're in good shape. Equally, if I was in a private meeting and I didn't want to be disturbed, I can simply close the door. Okay. So I'm just going to go for a little bit of a walk. I'll get rid of my pointer, and I'll just walk out. So this is me in the main office space. So as you can see, quite a large office. I'll just take a walk over to Adele now. So Adele's sitting, as you can see. And as you get closer to your avatar, you'll see their name appear and what organization they work for. So very easy to identify. You'll see that you can't see my name on this. So my view, I can either have my name up or take it away. But from a visual point of view, I've just taken my name off, although Adele could still see my name. So she'll know it's me if I was coming to visit. So I'm not going to disturb her today. But I'll just give you a quick whistle-stop tour of the office. So if I have a quick look in, I'll see Denise, who's working away. If I try to get into Denise's office, I can't because her door's closed. Okay, so she's clearly in a private meeting or on a call and doesn't want to be disturbed. Okay, Leona's off on holidays at the minute. Walk over with Lauren, and Lauren's at her desk as well. So we have various offices. The advantages in the metaverse is everybody gets a private office. So back in the day when you got your own office, you'd made it. You were somebody. With open plan offices, that isn't such an opportunity. But in the virtual world, we all get an office. And again, there's Adam working away, but you can see that he's in background mode. So he's clearly working on somebody else. He's still there. If I spoke to him, he'd still hear it, and he has the ability to respond. So all we have here really is a virtual representation of a real space. So some of the folks that we've seen today are physically in the office. I'm physically in the office. Some of the folks are working remotely, working from home, but we're all together. So if I need to speak to anybody in the team from a collaboration point of view or what's happening with a particular client, I can just walk over and speak to them. And you're saying, well, so what? Why wouldn't you use Teams or whatever? And what we would say is that Teams and Zoom are very good for transactional calls. So this is a good example of a good use of Zoom, where you would have a group of people coming together at a particular point in time to talk about a particular thing. But what about all those serendipitous moments during the day with your colleagues that you just need to check, or where's that at? Or if you're working at home, you're going to have to find another way to get to them. Do you drop them an email? Do you WhatsApp them? Do you phone them? So it's been a huge advantage for our business. It's allowed us to hire people in different locations. We would have been very much pre-pandemic, a Belfast-centric office. You hired people who could get to the office. You wouldn't have hired somebody in Southern Ireland or the UK because you felt you needed them. So our whole mindset has changed, and that's opened up possibilities in terms of who we hire and where they're located. Because regardless of where they are in the world, notwithstanding time zones, they can all be together in the one space. Okay, I'll just pop into some more features then. So again, replicating a physical space, there'll be a boardroom. Okay, so the advantage is some of the spaces are quite nice and quite impressive. So in this room, you've got multiple web boards so you can share and collaborate. We had a little bit of a competition on there, and Aaron won, as you can see, and that was in terms of a LinkedIn post to see who got the most engagements, and Aaron won that. So that's we use the space ourselves for lots of different use cases. That boardroom layout, then we could empty this space. If we wanted to do a stand-up event, we could empty the space. You could bring up to 80 people into this space. If we wanted to run some training in the kind of classic training scenario, you can do that. I can take my seat. I can zoom in then on whatever screen the tutor or lecturer is talking about, and access content, whether that be web-based content, uploaded content, whatever it happens to be. So as you can see, it's probably running beside a lot of the stuff that David would do. It's probably that less immersive piece, if you like, but it's more, I would call the traditional training sort of scenario. We can replicate those scenarios. But what we've also got from our clients is that what you can do is you can leave a lot of content in spaces for people to access then in their own time, at any time, because the park's on 24/7. You've got access to these spaces 24/7. Okay. So this is our space. So you're thinking, okay, well, where is the office? So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to highlight this menu bar on the left-hand side. So you can see the folk who are actually in the office space here. So Adam, Denise, Adele, etc., all in this space. So I can, and David mentioned teleporting. So you can walk, as you can say, I can walk, I can run, and that's simply left, right arrow keys, shift the run, etc. So Gillian, you raised a good point there about, is there an age thing there where people who are a bit older don't really want to embrace the new technology? I guess we found it to a degree, yes. And the hurdle is getting them into the platform. Once they're in, they realize actually it's not like a video game. It's not complex. You don't have to work out to shoot people, etc., etc. It's just simply moving about. And what we'll say is you're just replicating the real world. So you'll walk, you'll talk, That's what you do in the real world. So we have the opportunity to exit through the doors. So when you approach a door, you either enter a building or you exit. This will bring me back to what we call the welcome area. It just takes a few seconds to teleport out. Just bear with. So when I arrive in the park in the morning, and everybody else, this is where we arrive. So this is us actually within the VR park. As you can see, it's actually an island. So all the spaces are available within the island. And there's a lot of spaces. So if I click on the go to, let me just move that menu out of the way. There's lots of campus locations. So we've got banks, houses, libraries, towers, beaches, auditoriums, amphitheaters. We've got clients in. Marla Duckham, for example, is based in Central America, and she's running an event next week. So she's got an auditorium and boardroom already set up. The IDB, or International Development Bank, and again, they've run a number of events in the park, and they've got their own offices now. We've got support centres and speakeasy, and I'll take you to some of the spaces. But spaces aren't really the problem, and it's back to look, what is the problem you're trying to solve, or what is the advantage? So in terms of use cases that we're seeing from our clients, absolutely events. You know, so if I follow on from what David was talking about earlier there, in terms of, you know, he was getting quite deep. Jose had a question there, and you could see those two guys, you know, the opportunity to speak in a bit more detail is huge. You know, so Jose and David, you know, it'd be great to pair off. Now on a Zoom call like this, so it's very transactional. We'll do all the chat, and at the end we'll all exit and we'll go back to our corners and get on with work. If we had ran this, and Gillian, this isn't a pitch for the next one, but if we had ran the event in the park, for example, I'm just going to go to, let's just go to one of the auditoriums. So if we had ran the event in an auditorium, and we'll just teleport in, bear with. Everybody could have arrived, set up their avatar. You could have taken a seat. They could have watched myself and David. They could zoom in then on whatever the content was, etc., etc. But after the event, when the event closes, everybody says goodbye and the presenters go. Everybody else is still in the audience. So if Jose did want to speak to David, they could go and have a conversation, a sidebar. They could go and explore, you know, that networking opportunity, that real world opportunity is then available. So the serendipity of that, the human interaction of that is enhanced compared to the Zoom piece. And look, and we're not trying to put Zoom out of business by any stretch of the imagination, but it just gives you a sense. So this is quite a big space. I'll just jump on to the space. Whenever I'm on the stage, I now go into presenter mode. And what that allows me to do then is do a few things. So what I can do is, I just need to move that down a little. I can say, like, you know, this space is too big. We're only going to have maybe 50 people. So let's just make the space a little smaller, a little bit more intimate. As you can see, all I'm doing is clicking to reduce the size of the hall to make it more appropriate for the event. Okay, so a bit like David's idea about Wix, you know, the kind of that sort of menu-driven or wizard-driven way of getting, you know, easy access to training. This is similar in terms of making it just a few clicks away from getting you the right space for the right application. So you can do lots of things like, you know, change the mood lighting. You can mute the audience. You can do lots of different things which will enhance that user experience. So I guess, and I wouldn't say it was number one, but we do a lot of events, you know, across the globe. Some of the drivers for that are travel bans. COVID restrictions are obviously a huge driver for our business in terms of people not being able to meet face to face. You know, climate now, so people for large organizations who are being measured on their carbon footprint, what they don't want to be doing is shipping their entire team off to Vegas for a weekend. Sorry, but you know, so it's the impact of cost, it's the impact of the environment in terms of that you know, traveling by jets, etc., etc. So people are much more conscious of that, but what they're looking for is solutions which gives the same experience, allows lots of their teams to come together, to work, collaborate, learn, but also have fun. And I'll look at some of the fun pieces as we go. Just keep an eye on my time there too. I don't want to overrun. So I'm just going to leave the space. I'm just going to exit one of the doors. So in terms of use cases, definitely events. We're seeing a lot of recruitment happening. So recruitment fairs, onboarding. So once they've recruited these folk, onboarding, whether that's localized onboarding or global onboarding, it's a way for those folk then to be trained. So there's a lot of training, a lot of collaboration. So you'll see from a small, like there's 20 of us, we have our own dedicated office. We work and collaborate every day. So you can, from a 20 user organization right up to 10,000 plus. And so PwC have 6 campuses like this across the globe, and they use it for mostly the things we talked about there, which is events, recruiting, onboarding, collaboration, and also a little bit of fun. So this is me just in the reception. I'm just going to go over and speak to Danielle. You won't, I'm not going to worry about the mics. You won't hear Danielle, but I'm just going to ask her if she's available to give me a wave so you'll know that she can actually hear me. Bear with. Hi Danielle, how are you? Are you free? Yeah, good. Can you just give us a wave just so everybody knows that you can hear me? Brilliant. That's great. Thank you. Okay, thanks very much. Bye-bye. So that gives you an idea. So that was just Danielle basically looks after folks who would arrive. So we can give them orientation if somebody arrives in the park, make sure they know how to use the controls, how to get to where they need to be. So she's doing a great job there, which is great. But I did talk about fun. So there's definitely some fun items that we can do. So I'll just take a quick run over here. Okay, there's the auditorium that I would have been in earlier. You can walk to the auditorium. This is the cool stuff. So again, I can, yeah, and it looks a bit gamey, but it gives you an idea just in terms of some of the things you can do. The speedboats, what I do is just going to turn back on it gives you a sense of scale and what you've got around the space. Just again. Just jump out. So the IDB, the International Development Bank, they have a number of recruitment fairs. So this is the recruitment center. As you can see, multiple spaces. There's theaters for communication, breakout offices, and a dedicated auditorium for then communicating with some of the folk who would attend the fair. In terms of space, you could have, you could have 1,000, you could have 100, you could have 10,000 people in the space. So the space can expand and scale exponentially, effectively. So regardless of what the space is, a requirement is, we can accommodate that. So just jump into the art gallery to give you an idea of some of the softer use cases. So there's a Banksy exhibition on at the minute. And again, it's just a space focal point for teams to come, maybe get a bit of tutorial around some of the artworks, etc. And again, all done in a nice environment. So look, I think that's me on time. Gillian, is Is that okay time-wise? Do you want me
Brilliant.
to?
No, thank you, David. Has anyone any questions for David? I know John and Paul were just saying that they can see sort of applications for their sector already.
Okay.
But yeah, I was at an Invest NI event yesterday, and you know, sort of a bit into it. It was like, this is great to all be in a room together, but this, I mean, people could have dialed in, but then I can see where this comes in, because the presentations could have been on Zoom or Teams or whatever, but I got to speak to, you know, Sam, I got to speak to Colm, I got to speak to Cormac, you know, people, and on a Zoom call that wouldn't have happened, but it could have happened on this, because I could have said, oh, there's Cormac, I haven't seen him in a couple of years, and Colm Higgins was able to come over to me and say, Gillian, I'm not ignoring you, you know, that's where this comes in. It does mean that people can connect, whereas on, and I get it, you know, on a Zoom or Teams call or webinar, even if people were presenting, it's really difficult to interact. I know there's a private chat, but it's not the same as my avatar going over to somebody, or having that time, that sort of ability to do that. So yeah, no, I really get it now. Yeah, no, that was really good, David.
No, thanks for the feedback. Look, and look, the hardest bit in terms of is it's a little bit more complicated on the onboarding, because before going to an event, you've got to log in, get your avatar set up, and then you're ready to go. So that just adds a little bit of a rub on it compared to just, you know, clicking the button to join a Zoom call. However, we're a couple of months away, I think, from having a web-based version of attending events, so you don't have the whole setup piece, if you like. If you're just coming to an event, you can just pop in. It'll be a browser-based piece. At the minute, you've got to download the software on your PC, but it's like everything. The technology is just, you know, the development's happening so quickly.
Yeah.
But like that's great feedback. Much appreciated.
David, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I suffer from severe motion sickness, so even watching your presentation, I could only watch it with, it was great, but I could only watch it with one eye. So is there stuff coming? Is the future work being done that'll allow me to enter the VR world, or am I going to be stuck with the real world for the rest of my life?
Say that again. Sorry, say the last bit again.
Is there new techniques coming on board that's going to allow me, who should suffer of motion sickness, to enter the VR world, or am I stuck with the real world the rest of my life?
No, were you getting motion sickness watching me move there?
Oh, even there, yes. I last about 5 to 10 seconds in a VR experience. AR, I can't, but I'm not the only person. I know that other people suffer once they put the headset on and into that sort of world. Disorientation, sickness falls very quickly.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. So the feedback I've had, it looks a bit laggy at times, you know, a bit more jumpy. When I'm doing it live like this, it's very smooth. So I guess, you know, it's probably easier if you were in it yourself to see whether that's actually a problem. I'm not saying it won't be a problem, but look, the good news is it's free to access. And what I didn't really say was that, you know, where we see the metaverse going is that there's going to be lots of metaverses. There's not going to be one metaverse, as David said. No, there's not one company writing it all. And Meta, for me, is more the social media metaverses, if you like, the more public facing, whereas we're private enterprise. You know, it's an enterprise level metaverse, invitation only. The spaces around this are common and easy access, but if you want to access a private space, you pay for it. But there is free access, so you can go and download now and test it out. Now, I would like that. I haven't heard that before, actually, so it's very good. I could feed it back to the folks, because the guys who developed the platform, you know, were academics, and it was all around that inclusiveness, usability, experience, etc. So I'm going to do a wee bit of research too, just to see if there's anything. But in the meantime, I'll try and get you a link in the chat there, and feel free just to go and download your own. I think it mightn't be as bad as watching me do it, but it might be. Like, and only you will know whenever you try it, sort of thing. So I'll drop the link in, and as I say, it's free to download. So feel free to, you know, to have a play. Yeah. But thanks for the question. Very good.
I get very travel sick as well, but that didn't affect me. But yeah, as David said maybe when you're driving it, it's slightly different.
Well, you could tell I would be teleport. Like I was running about. I don't really run about in the park because it's a novelty. I teleport. You know, if I need to go to Adele's office, I teleport to their office. I don't walk to it sometimes, but you know, it's all about, even on the virtual world, we're all about speed. You know what I mean? So as much as the park's nice and all the rest of it, you still just need to get somebody to ask them a question. You know, that's the truth of it, you know.
Super. Thank you.
Like I'll put the wee link in the chat.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so it is coffee break time. If we come back at about 11:15, and we'll be hearing from Dr. Darragh Lydon then. So I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to pause recording. I hopefully will remember. I'm just saying this so I remember. David, can you make me host again as well, please? So I'm Julie.
Yeah, of course. If I do, tell me how to do it again.
So if you click on the wee screen where you see my face.
Yes.
And if you hover over me, there should be 3 buttons.
Just done it. Just done it.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, everybody, I'll see you back in a 15:15. If that's okay. And,
perfect.
Enjoy your break. Thank you, David. So, back to you. Thank you. I'm going to go on mute, but I introduced you very, very briefly earlier. So if you want to just say hello and then crack on.
Okay, my host again?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's it.
Right there. Everyone see it okay?
Perfect, yeah.
Is it on the immersive slide here? Okay, there we go. So my name is Darragh Lydon. I'm here to talk about some of the immersive work doing immersive tech here at Queen's. Just a quick background about me. Like Gillian said earlier on, my background originally was in games development. So I did a course in games dev in University of Ulster up in Magee. Finished that in 2011, and then worked for a company called Trolink up in Derry for about 5 years. We had about 20 games released over those 5 years. Some of them are there. None of them did very well, as tends to be the thing in games dev. So I ended up doing a PhD then in civil engineering using deep learning and computer vision for bridge inspections. And my postdoc was in like kind of the same thing, but using cameras on buses as opposed to pointing on bridges. And then just recently, I've joined the MediaLab, which is a new initiative in Queen's. It's like a cross-faculty thing. So it's not just in computer science, it's actually based in arts and humanities. So we're going using games technology for creating immersive experiences and for teaching students how to use those tools to make what they want to make out of them. So just quick overview of what the MediaLab actually is. So it's going to be 3 facilities on site whenever it's properly developed. Like I said, it's a fairly new faculty, so nothing's actually finished off yet. The first is going to be Trainor University Square. It's going to have like room scale extended reality, loads of XR stuff, green screen, proper review and authoring suites, stuff for use to research and monitoring, and also a volumetric capture setup. And then it's also going to be, this is for mainly for students in their lab work. So it's going to use, instead of having on-site computers, it's just going to be a cloud setup. So the students can join from whoever, log in and get their technology there. And they can use that for making their projects. And the final bit then will be just the capture lab. So it's going to have a full LED volume, going to have stages for virtual production, for performance capture, motion tracking for objects or actors, multi-cam broadcast. It basically is just set up for virtual production so students can make their own virtual production projects. So the thing we want to talk about here is basically I want to encourage people to come work with us at the MediaLab to do research in these areas. So some of the areas we're hoping to do work in is simulation, like using games tools for architecture visualization, for creating digital twins. You could do it in life sciences for process analysis, like for surgery. They could do XR stuff for that. Obviously, we're going to do gaming projects. My background is in games, and it's a big industry, so people are looking to do that. That's fine. Education stuff, mixed reality experiences, and also virtual production. If there's any people interested in the more drama side of it, we'll be doing some of that as well. The key skills we're going to be using, we're going to be using a lot of program work using Visual Studio. We're going to be using Unreal Engine, which is a games engine, that and Unity, which is another games engine. I think David Trainor talked about them earlier on. I think a lot of his work uses Unity. It's basically just a way of making 3D environments. And then finally, we're going to use NVIDIA Omniverse. I'm actually also the university ambassador for NVIDIA. They're a large-scale graphics company. They're putting through a lot of work in metaverse tech and digital twins and things like that. So we're going to use a thing called Omniverse, which is a thing for real-time collaboration, which allows people to work together across multiple locations and use multiple software packages. So somebody's working in Unreal Unity and someone else is working in Maya or Blender, which is an animation package. They can actually work together at the same time, and the stuff can be updated live with no conflicts or anything like that. So it's a thing for collaboration. I'm just going to show you this quick video as well. What stuff for some of the stuff that's been done using the Omniverse. Just give you an idea of what can be done with it. So it's basically just an overview of like some technologies that can be used. People are using Omniverse for creating process stuff. This is for trains. Whether you can combine computer vision and AI tools with it. So this one's been using to find the optimal location for signal towers, using to in city planning. And let's see the ones there. This one using for just creating virtual kitchens. So again, it's just an idea of something you could do with the Omniverse. Yeah, it can also be, it's just used for robotics planning, for getting all the logistics inside the factory. One of the things, a project I'm going to be working on soon with FP McCann is using the Omniverse to create a digital twin of their factory process and using it to upgrade their logistics and also their monitoring tools they're going to be using there. So there's a diverse array of use cases basically for immersive tech. And if anyone's interested in exploring some of these things with Queen's, we're looking for potential research partners. So if anyone wants to apply for funding with us, that would be.
Your screen has gone off there, Darragh, has it?
Huh?
Has your PowerPoint gone on to a different screen there? It's not displaying the slides just.
It's not showing the video at all?
No.
All right, I've been talking for no reason then. Can anyone see the video at all? No?
No, you might have to I'm trying to think here. If you maybe oh, I don't know.
Yeah. 2 seconds. Thanks for speaking up though, otherwise I would have been talking about a video no one could see. Yeah.
You're not in presenter mode.
Okay. Is your video visible now?
That's the job, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. So again, like I said, these are just some of the uses for Omniverse tech. This is for a train company using it for obstacle analysis and also passenger movement. This one is for signal tower placement inside a digital twin of a city to get maximum signal strength. The other ones are for Yeah, so again, like I said earlier on, there's a lot of use cases you can use for this. I'm sure the other guys have talked about it already, so I'll just move on to the rest of the video because it's just show more stuff, more of the same. So, like I said, the MediaLab is quite new, so we haven't actually got much projects done ourselves so far. So I'm just going to show a quick run through of some of the projects people are using Immersive Tech for in Queens. So Dr. Lucy Baxter is using it for VR for social work. They created a 10-minute cinematic VR experience to help people basically immerse into abuse situations and then analyze how they feel about that, and then perform studies to help people deal with their emotions in these kind of scenarios. There's details for Lucy's stuff there if anyone wants to contact her or project partners. There's another work from, there's a VR lab in EECS led by Dr. Matthew Collins. He does a lot of student projects on a variety of devices incorporating VR and AR. I'll just run through a quick showcase of it here. So the student had a rock, paper, scissors game in Quest. He could recognize their hand gestures and use that throughout the game. Other ones they had were, again, just more games that have like recognizing hand gestures, hand movements using shadow puppets, and the performance would respond to that. See in a second, the dog should move away in a minute. Yeah. Again, just hand gestures using it to fire a ball back and forth. This one here was, again, used for XR thing or AR thing, using interaction with objects in the pen tool. There's more to make sure the hand tracking was cracked properly. And this version here, there's actually, this is a networked one, so there's two users. The little hamburger you can see floating in the head is another user networked somewhere else. So they're actually able to interact together using the VR. Move on to this one. This one here is a learning experience that they created, so they could do, they recorded a lab basically, and they were able to replicate the lab in VR, and they had the video playing at the same time, and the student just follows along the process as the video plays. And the final one then is just using VR and AR to do room scanning thing, and then having just some objects they can play with inside the room. And they're all just projects that are done over 2 or 3 months. So they're only kind of proof of concepts of what we can do with AR and VR, but hopefully they'll be able to do more of those as time goes on. Another project is done by Dr. Liam Kuzmenko. So they're using VR to help people with dementia, basically to work on their treatment. So the picture on the top is a pool hall that one of their patients had visited back in his army days. So they recreated the whole thing from pictures and recordings and the stories he told them about it. And he was able to go into that experience and remember it exactly as it was. The bottom one is the harbour in Portrush, again recreated from old recordings and pictures, and just help the people with dementia to go through the treatment process and help them a lot easier, makes things a lot easier for them basically. Another one is the InterSim Center. So this is a large training center for medical students, because obviously a lot of their work involves hands-on training. It's incorporating VR tech again, led by Professor Jerry Gormley. The picture there is their cave where they have like videos presented on the walls, and students have to work in certain scenarios. That's their guide for development content there. So it's just gather a team, deliver content with intent, create a story, prepare the filming, record it, and then post-production. Some technology they use just for scanning environments, and then they will be put back into the cave, which is the highly immersive virtual environment, and then use those for student training. And then the final one, actually, I think John's on this call, as far as I know. Just basically he goes out, and this is using a LiDAR scanner to scan environments. And these environments can be scanned and then brought straight into 3D engines like Unreal and Unity, I want to talk about earlier. And they can be used for creating experiences. If John has anything to say about those, hopefully he'll speak up. But he's the one that records all these scans, basically. And I think John might correct me if I'm wrong, but I think these are all scanned to within 20 mil of the actual physical dimensions. So the scans are very high resolution. And again, they can be brought straight into a 3D engine. And the final one then, this is actually easier done using a mobile scanner. So John just basically put these on the back of his bike and was able to travel up and down the dark hedges and get this high level scan. I think it was done within 20 minutes or so. And this one here was during lockdown. He went in and went around all Belfast city centre and scanned all the buildings and the roads around the city centre, because obviously the streets were closed during lockdown. And again, these are down to within 20-30 mil of the actual physical dimensions, and they can be imported into engines straight away for any kind of experience that they want to do. This one's been used for, there's his setup there. It's been used for flood planning for a new project using, it's the Belfast City Council is involved with. So there's the map of Belfast City Centre. That's pretty much just a quick overview of some of the work that's been done in Queen's on immersive tech. And again, if anyone wants to contact us about possibly doing research stuff, my email is here, and Gillian will have it anyway if you don't take note of it now. So that's it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Darragh, thank you very much. Funny, I was at a thing yesterday, and one of the team from FP McCann was talking about different things that we're doing with AI and you know, to sort of quality check pipes. Then you think of a company like that and you think they make you know, concrete, but the amount of technology that they're putting into all the various parts of the business is amazing. You know, so
I'm actually on their project as well. I'm working with them on their project, on that KTP, me and two others from civil. We're leading that project, so
yeah,
that's the one. It's going to follow on to the next one for the digital twin of the factory.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah. And then it was another event. You can tell I haven't gone to events in a long time because all I can do is talk about them. At Caffrey last week, and McCullough's Quality Foods was talking about how they've automated, you know, and put cobotics and robotics into certain parts of the factory, but also about how the next step is using immersive technologies on the production line. And again, something that you know, people really thinking forward about how these technologies can help and thinking of use cases. And I suppose that's really where the MediaLab comes in. It's to help industry identify where they can use these.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping to do anyway. Basically.
Yeah, brilliant. Has anyone any questions for Darragh? You can just unmute yourselves, and I see John. I love your bike. I can just imagine sort of going up and down the dark hedges. You must be in some tourist's photo. You'll be on Facebook somewhere. Has anyone any questions?
It's a question for John, possibly, and Darragh. Whenever you're out scanning in the street, have you come across any IP issues of problems with you can't scan that? I know that even buildings that are new buildings actually fall under the architect's ownership, even though they're quite keen to have them photographed. But have you had any issues with IP and scans? in public spaces?
No, never.
No one's ever
No.
said a word.
No, no. If you're out on the street, you're not breaking any rules. It's like taking a photograph. It's just a three-dimensional measurement of the building.
I did some IP work, and a lawyer will give you a different story to that. But anyway,
Okay. Well, no, it's no one's ever stopped me. Ever.
that's okay. No, just curious.
And I've done it all over the world as well, and no one's ever stopped me. They just go, "What does that machine do?" And I'm usually going, "Will you get out of my way? You're blocking it." But no. Just did one case that I can't really discuss way back when I was working with the police. You can't take information that goes through windows and starts to go inside buildings. That's a bit different, but most of the buildings and streets and structures I scan have been commissioned by someone. So yeah, full permission. Yeah.
Can I just say, when you scan, like you had the front of Queen's, is that one continuous scan, or do you scan in sections and then stitch it together somehow?
That was done with a tripod mounted laser scanner at about 5 different locations. And it's accurate to about 2 or 3 mil. The other one with the dark edges is a mobile laser scanner, and it's accurate to about 20 or 30 mil. And you just go walking with it. We actually have a student who's done the whole of Belfast. I just did that as a test on a bike. He's walked the whole of the city centre, as Darragh said, for a new flood model. But the use is city councillor now onto us looking to go, where's every bin in the city? You just give them a data set and go through it, and it's all geo-referenced data. Brilliant for even, setting up, you want to create a movie in Belfast, film locations, etc., etc. It's very powerful data. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Is that open source or open data, John, or does Queen's own that, or just the council?
The Belfast City model?
Yeah.
Yeah, it will be open soon. We're just getting it, the IP attached to the PhD student, and then it will be released for anyone to use. Yeah, that's
amazing. Yeah, that would be really, really useful for, like, so many sort of smart city or whatever, lots of projects. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Work. And that digital twin stuff as well for all sorts of industries. Really powerful. Paul's asking, if you don't have a big budget, can you recommend any hardware to 3D capture?
It's actually for John again, probably.
Yes. You can. There's cheaper scanners. My favorite scanner of all is my iPhone with built-in LiDAR. I use it almost every day. Yesterday, I went to scan a stone on the Shankill outside a church, and I took my £50,000 kit, and it took over an hour, and I did it in 20 seconds with my phone, and my phone was 2 mil out. So, wow. Yeah, your phone. Drop.
Does my
sorry, drop.
Built-in?
Say again, sorry.
I was just going to ask. I'm sorry, I was speaking over somebody. But I have an iPhone? Does it have the LiDAR built in, or do I have to download an app? Or
no. Sorry, LiDAR is all the light. So all your phones can take photographs. All the LiDAR does is shoots out a little burst of laser to measure the distance to it. So whatever you capture in 3D, it's captured in scale. You can still do it without a LiDAR enabled mobile phone. So they're the Pro Max versions, or the Pro versions of the 12, the 13 and the 14, and the last couple of iterations of the iPad Pro. But so look for an app called Scaniverse, SCA. I put it on the chat, and Polycam. They're fantastic. They really are. I mean, it's the future, capturing the world on our phones in 3D.
And there's Nick as an Android user, and he said, is there an Android version?
Yes, there is Android versions for most of those. Yeah, the advantage again with the LiDAR is that when you create a 3D model from the imagery, it's actually created to scale, because the camera knows how far away it is from the object, but there's nothing to stop you creating a 3D model with a non-LiDAR enabled phone and then taking a single measurement on the object and then scaling it up in free to use software, so it actually is to scale. Yeah, they're very powerful, and they're straight to ARs. And after 20 seconds scanning yesterday, I had it in AR, dropped it anywhere. And these apps are free. Very good.
Brilliant, John. Sorry, I think I spoke over somebody there, so I'm going to shut up if somebody else wants to shout out.
It was John who was talking.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I only come on to listen to Darragh, not answer any questions.
I knew they'd ask you though. I saw you. I was like, they're going to ask about the scans because scans are class. So
yeah, no. So thanks and apologies for
You're okay.
jumping.
No, brilliant, John. Thank you. Any more questions for Darragh or John?
Anyone from Queens, really?
Great. Darragh, would you share your presentation as well? Because there's some great big links in there. Were great as well.
Yeah.
And I can share Darragh's email address too. But that's great that the MediaLab's there at Queens. So, Michael, Darragh, can you make Michael McGlade host? I know
Was
we're
it
a few
Michael
minutes
McGlade?
early
Yeah.
for you, Michael, but that's okay.
Does that work?
Your host now. There we go.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So, Michael, I gave a very brief introduction to you at the very beginning at 9:30 this morning. So you might want to just say a wee bit about Yellow Design and yourself.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you, Gillian, for inviting me along today. Just happy to share the journey that we've been on, how we're using AR as a technology, and anybody, any questions later on or at any point, jump in and I'll try my best to answer them. And just going back to so Yellow Design is a branding and digital media company. And come back to 2018, Belfast coincidentally, Belfast set a challenge to become a smart city. And what we came to realize that everybody was coming at it from a technology perspective, very much about IoT, big data, all these different things. And we just thought we would actually miss the point of, well, what does this mean for a citizen? What does the citizen's user experience look like? And we started branching and investigating the use of VR as technologies and augmented reality. And we really then made a determination that everyone's got a smartphone in their pocket. John, as you were just saying, I mean, they're smart devices. They're well capable of a lot more things they would ever envisage. And that was the beginnings of Rover, which is a new platform that we have developed. So I will share with you what we have been doing. Let's say, so don't worry, not death by PowerPoint, just more visuals. Everybody can see that screen okay, yeah?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, that's great. Okay, so we've ended up almost pivoting the entire company from being just web and animation and branding. Actually, the almost 75% of our business now is in virtual content and space. And what we came to realize, if you bear with me, it's very much in the visitor economy and smart cities. And everybody talks about sustainability, and it's rightly so, making it work better for our people, making it work better for our economy, making it work better for our environment. But in the day and age that we're in, we talk about being resilient, and really regards of dealing with COVID, pandemics, the geopolitics, cost of living, things are getting tighter. And we talk about how do we use natural and existing resources and assets that we already have within a city. So do we have a good transport network? Do we have 4G rather than 5G? Do we have things like that? And this is where you start being smarter by just bringing all them assets together. And also, can you track data and understand the customer, the citizen journey? And that's at the core of the innovation that we have been going on. And we really then go back a bit. We looked at the glider, and this is go back 3-4 years ago, a bright new shiny transport network. And we were going, it'd be ideal if you were able to, as you can, hop on, hop off, and go and visit different stories across the city. So in the east, you had C.S. Lewis. Could you go and visit Narnia? Could you go out to Titanic Quarter and see the ship and so on? And out in the West Belfast, could you go out and see things like the Peace Walls? So we did do that, and we looked at this and opening up our Maritime Mile and how people could go down and use that space. And what we're pleased to say is actually being driven by creativity, we actually managed to recreate Titanic at full scale at 269 meters just on the smartphone. And this is using open public spaces. You can view the ship in high detail and see the rivets and everything like that. And then we've done this thing where you can actually explore the decks. So by hitting that button, we lower the 3D geometry of the model, basically down on the ground level. So when you're walking among the markings on the ground for lifeboats and funnels, you're actually using your phone to explore the decks of Titanic. Yeah. And that kind of got us kind of breaking some of the benchmarks of things of what was actually achievable. And then we done other things as well, like HMS Caroline, just bringing stories back to life. So looking at it and going, there's an amazing story with, it was actually an aircraft carrier back in World War I. And we didn't even realize that it was aircraft carriers. So now you've got things like dogfights and so on going on. Up in the sky above HMS Caroline. Yeah. And I'd say it's this whole thing about bringing stories, the visual communication, and bringing things really back to life and not reinventing them, just reimagining the stories. We've done a lovely thing of opening up the public space in C.S. Lewis Square. We actually can go down through the wardrobe, down there in the bottom left-hand corner, and we turned it into gamification. So when you go through, you actually go through the wardrobe, you actually get to see Narnia, and by collecting the lantern and the Turkish delight and the swords, you start to unlock stories and parts of the narrative against the physical sculptures that are there inside. Pretty brilliant in that sense. So, and then just briefly then pushing the boundaries and using this glider. We have also done other things of out by Dunmurray, out by Poglass Twinbrook, we have where the glider essentially goes out and does a U-turn. And again, we've got an open public space, which every city and every town has. And you're going, can we bring immersive, interactive stories into open public spaces? And that's what we have been really successful at doing. So we came up with this thing of the actual DeLorean factory was built on the other side of Twinbrook, believe it or not, to know that kids can actually launch a full-scale DeLorean car, customize it. But what we done was we tied that into the glider timetable. So if you look at the bus stops, and it tells you the ticker tape that the next glider is due in 7 minutes or 13 minutes and so on, we turned that into playtime. So you've got 13 minutes to customize your car. And then when you've got it customized, up pops a virtual racing track, and you can now race your car around. And we get kids to give us ideas to how to make the game better. And you're getting communities and people and children starting to build the content through. And actually, we end up getting commissioned by Formula One out in Yas Mal in Abu Dhabi. So that game is now, I'd say, going through. So just great things that we want to do for our own city. I was just thought that Belfast, we didn't have a tourism sector, and how we can go from having no tourism pretty much 20, 25 years ago to leading the way in smart tourism. And then we came to realize that fundamentally it's about creating a simple, seamless visitor experience, that we can't overwhelm people with too much information. And as brand consultants and graphic designers, we started working with the principle of less is more. So how do people actually then navigate across cities? How do they go along the Antrim coast? How do they go across different areas? So we came to realize that things were quite complex, jumping in between different apps, trying to get different reviews, trying to get guidance, and trying to optimize your time. And fundamentally, it's the visitor has to continuously search. So we wanted to reverse that. And what we done was we put the visitor at the center of all this. And we went, how do you deliver the right content at the right time, at the right place? And we work towards this, what we call a hub and spoke model. So what about if the citizen, the visitors at the center of the hub, and we bring in the information. So if it's relevant to what kind of food and drink they like, if it's events, if it's cultural experiences that they want to go and avail of course, everybody's in the retail. And transport, how do you get from A to B? And can destination B be completely reimagined and a story completely retold? So what we've done is we've developed what we call the Rover Pod. And what the Rover Pod does is on the 4G network, on the existing infrastructure. When you look through your phone, you will see this pod appear around you. And depending on your proximity and your GPS location within a city, it makes real-time recommendations for attractions. Or in the evening, if you decide you want to go for something to eat or something to drink, it then turns into a simple compass and tells you the travel distance and time to actually where to go. And we're really pleased that Belfast Harbour have commissioned this, and this is going to be available pretty soon to the public in Belfast. We're in conversation with people as well. And you will be able to see Titanic and HMS Caroline and things like that as well. And based on using immersive technologies and AR and keeping it simple, which is a fundamental, we have ended up using the tagline of freedom to explore, one guide for every city, and giving people that freedom and peace of mind, what they can do across different areas. And weirdly, from doing the glider in Belfast, we ended up working with the Metro, the RTA in Dubai, and they very much are into bringing smarter communities, people, tourism, that you can actually go and see all the different things you can do. We have had to work out the commercial element of how this thing pays for itself in regards to bringing in advertising and bringing in brilliant experiences for tourists and Indigenous people to realize how important public transport is within creating a sustainable, smarter city or destination. And we've got things on the go, like where you can go into Dubai Marina now and feed the penguins, which looks a bit surreal in the 34 Celsius heat, but it's things that kids could never get to imagine. And we're showing that your global footprint, carbon footprint, effect has a international global impact. And then also things like the whales coming out of the water, and just imagination in whatever way we decide to use that space using augmented reality. Yeah. See the questions building up here. I'm just going to check on them, see if there's anything I can do. If you don't mind. Okay, so that's okay, right? Just checking. And then we've done other things as well. So I need to now get rid of this. With me, sorry. Now I've got the Zoom chat sitting in front of me. I just want to go back in. Yeah, and even the point now, back hopefully working with the glider, and we actually use the harbour as a smart city test case. So it's our R&D lab in many ways that wherever we get developed. So you got then the possibility of we were going, well, what about if kids get on? We want to encourage them to use transport. We want them to encourage and go and explore their own cities and districts. And what about if we had the possibility that you could, when you actually get on the tram, that we can make the sunroof, our imaginary sunroof, open up, and all of a sudden children are sitting on the metro, but they're really going on a safari adventure, and we'll bring in the parrots and monkeys and everything flying through, and it's just whatever creative imagination we decide to use against that. Yeah. Yeah. So sorry, this is just so. What I was going to say, I was not part of the presentation in regards to some of the stuff we have done in. I'll just finish out this bit. Yeah. So content management backend system that we end up having to build, which drives some of the content, but just what you have all been determined and talking about earlier on as well is the fact that you can geo the data, and that we understand where people are triggering the pods, where they're interacting experiences, what's on demand. And it really allows everybody to have intelligent data insights into what's possible within tourism, and really like where you really investigate or invest your energy and your resources. And that's pretty much what we have ended up doing in the tourism space. Yeah. So I'm going to have another part of the presentation was about advanced manufacturing. which I'm happy to share. But I was going to suggest that if anybody's any questions or something now, I could take a few minutes of questions before I start talking about advanced manufacturing and architecture. Yeah.
Perfect. Michael, Steve from NI Silver is asking, are people able to access the Titanic experience yet? And he's just saying very interesting work. I think everyone's really had their minds blown. But
yeah, so we're doing two things. One is with part of the harbour. It's at the last stage now. We're working in conjunction with BT. They're just doing some final testing, and then it will be going into public release for free. Hopefully within they're probably coming in the Christmas period, so it's probably be in the new year. Yeah, so you'll be able to see HMS Carline, the dog fights, Titanic, and we've built some stories about the old shipbuilding, which is on the other side of the river from Titanic, and just bringing some of these stories back to life. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Any other questions on this part of the presentation before Michael moves on? Like, everyone is so impressed. It's amazing.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. So we'll go into the second part then. So we have done a lot of work in the advanced manufacturing sector as well. Very fortunate to work with companies, local companies like Thomson Aero, who make the aircraft seats, Conveyor Tech based up at the Aldergrove, companies overseas, Valence, Lithium Works, and so on. And really what we have come to realize, and what I'd like to emphasize, is when you think about augmented reality, virtual reality, or XR and the glasses and so on, it really is the art of visual communication. It's an extension to what we have, like either photography, film, print, not there. But the great thing about immersive technology is how interactive it can be and how smart and intelligent it can be. But if you think about what is it you're really trying to communicate to your audience, may it be in tourism, may it be in advanced manufacturing, may it be in architecture, that's the fundamental thing that you really want to stick with, and be my recommendation. So what we have done is, for example, here is in architecture, and anybody's on the call who's in that kind of construction or engineering. We looked at this, man. Wouldn't it be amazing if this is a direct recording from my iPad? So wouldn't it be amazing if you could actually just map out the floor plan of an apartment? We're doing this with a company in Abu Dhabi, and you're actually able to walk then across the floor plan and go, I can actually walk in among the tables and chairs, the bedrooms. But what about if I actually hit this button here, which is like for a true 3D walkthrough? And now all of a sudden we've brought this up in high definition, the tables, the chairs, the furniture, of which we now built in a configurator, so you can swap in the materials, the beds, sofas, wallpaper, and so on. And there I am with my iPad, walking in the rooms. And one of the key things we're in favor of AR is that, and not to be competitive or anything, but with VR, sometimes people put the headsets on and you lose eye contact. And it's very hard to have a conversation with someone not knowing what they're looking at or things like that. So we just thought two people walking along with an iPad is a great way to communicate in person. And then there's the ability there to go up in another level. So we're now up on the first floor, bringing us back down onto the ground floor. And now I'm actually going to walk outside the building, I believe. Yeah, in this recording. It's been a while since I looked at it. And now I'm actually just making my way outside, using the little cursor there in the bottom right. And now I'm looking up at the building itself from the exterior point of view. Yeah. And then what was lovely, this company, Aldar, they threw us a challenge and going, if you can build Titanic at that scale, could you build us a complete complex, a complete like 12-story building? And we were like, well, there's only one way to find out. So this is, if anybody knows this is Saadiyat Island in Abu Dhabi, and that's the in the background, the dome there you can see is the Louvre Museum. So Aldar, the company we're working with, are basically developing all this real estate, apartments, and everything in between. So we've got this lovely blend of what you've got there is the real world, as we would call it. So you can see exactly what's going around you. And then when you turn around to your right, you're actually starting to see the actual buildings and actually how they're going to appear just on location using iPads or your smartphone. We've actually turned out the quality of this animation up a great deal and the quality of it. The visual end, that was just a primary test. Go, do you have the illusion of that building is in front of you, which it really did. It was quite funny to see everybody's reaction. And then just in advanced manufacturing, or no matter what, in immersive technologies, this is what I would be encouraging you to think about. So you do have the technology, you got the VR headsets, you've got mixed reality, which is the glasses, which are really coming to market a lot faster now. And then you've got the AR, which is the mobile smartphones and iPads, what everybody has access to. And you need to kind of benchmark against, if we're going to do something, can we afford 15 headsets? Can we afford they added more computers? Can we add in, you know, like the HoloLens 2 is about $3,000? You have to almost do the maths on it and answer the business case going, that's not affordable. Where everybody, John, as you were saying, like the smartphones, tablets, you know, they're easily accessible and some of the content that can be brought through. Then you have to look at, well, what content do we have? Do we have access to like existing CAD models? Can they be easily customized? Can they be made interactive? Can we animate them? Can we do other things? And fundamentally, the business case, you have to answer the business case because you're going to have to go to your CFO, your financial officer, you're going to have to go and get your budget. And if you can't answer that last part, all the rest of it's almost irrelevant. And we just found that a lot of people loved immersive technologies, but they couldn't answer the business case. So I really encourage you to think that through. There's ways with companies who'll work with you and go, like, we have product libraries, we can do a lot of special effects as such. We can do our things and it makes things more efficient for you, where things can be scaled up, transparency, making things look through, which has all been demoed, I'm sure, this morning. And in regards to training, the things that we just try to emphasize is, you know, identify the challenge first and foremost, because that's where the business case and the PO number lies. And you want to guide people through an existing process, really about getting their confidence up. That's the key thing. If people get their confidence up, then they're going to operate and do their task a lot more easier. You can identify the best practice, and in a case, identify the best hardware, the VR, immersive, AR, whatever way suits your case. And just fundamentally, don't forget, we're human beings. So we want to increase the skill set. We want to increase people's confidence. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with watching a video tutorial before you put a headset on or use AR, just to educate people on exactly what knowledge they need to retain before they go and use the VR to practice. And I think a lot of people miss that. They think, oh, I'll just put on a VR headset or take an AR or whatever it is, and I'm off and running. And it's still that fundamental. You need to educate people and make them, give them knowledge. You got ways of measuring the individual success then of when they do put the VR headset on, how good they were at doing it, what mistakes were being made, and they get the opportunity to evaluate and correct them. And you've got all the data metrics and so on. So what I want to do now is really just talk about some of the business cases that we have done with some of the companies in advanced manufacturing. So VRPARK, I say they're based up at Nuts Corner, and they're amazing at what they do in developing bespoke systems and solutions using conveyor systems, and they do it around the world. And they had done a thing where they were working with the Royal Mail, and they had built a conveyor system up in Mollusk. It was working really well, but they wanted to sell into this different sorting offices around Bristol and south of England, and actually over in Edinburgh also, but they couldn't dismantle this thing and bring it with them every time they wanted to go on a roadshow, and they needed to get the sales to almost go and start building more models. So they came to us and they were really intrigued. So what we done was like, well, why don't we do this where you can, I've just recorded this morning down Titanic, why don't we draw out the footprint? Again, that's where the ideas came from. They explained to people the amount of footfall or the footprint required to deploy the parcel sorter conveyor system. Then we brought in you can walk around this in full 360. you're able to have a conversation with the guy who's going to be plugging the electrics, the union reps, the managers and so on, to explain what's coming in. And then I've actually hit number 2 here, the automate the system. And now we're actually able to see all the parcels and everything, actually how the system works in full scale and verbatim in real time. And then we've also then the IoT explaining that they can bring in real-time information of exactly how many parcels have went into each bin, what needs to be there, and really tell their narrative, their storytelling. That's really what it is, of actually things and how they go about. We work with Thomson Aero in regards to the internal assembly line, that they were getting new recruits. And it's so easy to run the electric looms, the wiring into the seats, but Airbus and Boeing were bringing it up that it needed to be consistent every time. If you took off the back of that seat, they can't have some of their staff, their employees trying to work out the wiring. So we worked out a way that you could actually launch in VR and really get the Thomson Aero recruits really up to speed on exactly how things should be done. Lithium works very much the same way, how things, all the electric and the batteries should be all set in order in the right sequence, tested and brought through in that way. And Cubus, so Cubus is based down by Craigavon, and they've come up with this amazing product, which is GPR. And what they do is you kind of build these boxes like a Lego set, but the drilling has to be done precisely at a certain place to let the piping and all going through. And they just found that people were getting disorientated between looking at a 2D drawing and building a 3D product. So they really looked at us to go like, listen, can we keep this all in 3D? So you look at it, AR, we draw out the map, and they basically follow a ghost shadow of the actual product, leg for leg, and put everything in place. And that's the kind of stuff that we've been doing then in advanced manufacturing. Yeah. So let's just see. Yeah. And that's pretty much Gillian and me finished out on that one. Yeah.
Brilliant. Michael, that was really, really interesting. I think there's a couple of chats here. So Millie's asking, do you see future iterations being able to cater for diverse users, for example, colorblind people?
Yeah. So what we do is we use software. Some people use Unreal and others use Unity, and it's a gaming engine. And what you can do with it is it's powerful. We can change the contrast on your screen. For people with visual impairment, you can bring in the audio. You can bring in all them elements. And that's some of the things that we're developing for what we're doing in the harbour. So we've released Rover 1.0. Now we're looking at accessibility even more so. We've already brought in some key features, but just being able to push out more when we go to 2.0. Yeah.
And Paul Duffy is saying, with the technologies moving forward so fast, would you give any advice for anyone interested in getting involved in this space? Unity, Unreal, or any other directions?
Yeah. Let's go first with Unreal and Unity. I have to say, we're big fans of Unity. Unreal is amazing at doing aesthetics and making things look so real, and the quality of it is spellbinding. But with Unity, they are getting better at it in regards to aesthetics. You can still do all the stuff you've seen that we have produced is all produced through Unity, but it's how you can program it. The data and what it's capable of doing is absolutely amazing. And there are challenges, no doubt about it. The pace of what the whole immersive sector is moving at is breathtaking, and it's a challenge even for ourselves, that you're reading about the latest hardware, you're reading about different projects have been delivered, and there's no easy answer to it, except you just need to keep your head in the game and just make sure you spend your money and efforts wisely. But there's loads of people out there in the community who are willing to share information like ourselves and give people a bit of a signpost on their heads up, or advice of, no, we've been doing that rabbit hole, you don't want to go down there, and things like that. So and that's why I'm flagging up things like PO numbers. You can come up with some amazing stuff, some amazing innovations and imagination of what you can do. But if you can't answer a business case, there's not going to be a customer at the end of it either.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And funny, that's come up in a lot of our, whatever technology, like robotics and cobotics and things like that. What problem is it you're trying to solve?
Yeah.
That's what you have to keep going back to. And is the technology going to really, is that going to solve your problem, or is it something else you need to be looking at? And this is just a bit of a sort of facetious example, but at our robotics session a few months ago, John McLaughlin, the presenter, asked, what are one of the problems you're trying to solve? And somebody said difficult staff, and he said, well, that's not cobotics isn't going to solve that. That's a management issue. That's
Yeah.
and I know that's a joke, but what is the problem you're trying to solve, and is this the best way to solve it? You just have to, as you say, Michael, keep going back to that business case.
Yeah, it really is. And as for ourselves in the creative space, John, just add in there. I just find that, what's your purpose? What is for you, me personally? What is it you're trying to get out of this? And I just have this thing about the people. Like, I want the design for citizens and people, and actually also just children getting involved in creating content. And it's just something I get a real kick out of when you see the stuff being deployed, or children creating artwork and galleries and the DeLorean. Sometimes when you get sometimes when you're getting beat up and you're not getting the response from the market and the sales that you expected, sometimes you just remind yourself that you're doing some brilliant work and different reasons, different passions. It keeps you going, doing as well.
No, absolutely. Darragh's just put in the chat there, learning curve for Unity isn't as steep as it uses is that C+? I can never, or no, Unreal.
C#, sorry.
C#,
C#.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
Unreal may need C++ experience, which can be more difficult to get involved with.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Michael, or any comments on any of the presentations? I've just as well, I put the feedback form in the chat. Honestly, it is so straightforward. It's really simple. If you could leave some feedback, I mean, it helps us make sure the content's right and improve, but I also need it for just auditing purposes. So and one more point, Michael, funny, somebody on our cobotics session last week, somebody was saying it's sometimes really difficult to get younger people to use the keypads and different things on touch screens, even on the factory floor. They still want to use their phones, and it's going back to you saying about iPads and phones, for that experience. People are just so used to using their phones, and and iPads obviously a bit bigger, but it was just that sort of crossover between different technologies.
Yeah, I just think as well, as John mentioned, what the phones able to do with LiDAR and everything, and they really are. They're called smartphones, of course, but they're a lot smarter of what they're capable of doing. But I also think you need to be respectful of people's data, and so now we've come up with some really creative ways of understanding the customer behavior, where we're asking their name or email address or bombarding them. We're just building up that exchange of rewarding people with experiences. And just by what language they select or what their preferences they've picked on, we can start creating personas. So there's other ways of doing this, and just creative thinking constantly. Yeah.
Brilliant. Look, I'm going to leave it there. If anyone has any more questions or anything, but you can send them on to me, and I can forward them on. But I'll share presentations if the presenters send them on to me, if that's okay, or a abridged version. I know some of the content might be a wee bit sensitive, but thank you all for coming along. And as I say, we've some more sessions coming up. Blockchain next week, IoT the week after, and big data on the 30th of November. But yeah, I'll send out details. So thank you very much to all our presenters. I see John's still here, and I think Darragh was, because yes, Darragh's still here. Michael, thank you so much. David, thank you very much. I know David Trainor had to drop off, but look, thank you all very much, and hopefully you'll be able to join some of our other sessions. So Michael, you might need to make me host so I can stop the recording, but I would say it would be smart.
Okay.
So, but brilliant, everyone. Look, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you everyone as well.
Thank you.